Hey, are you still awake? Figured. Can't whatever you picture, you keep that outfit in your dreams, 'cause how could your rainbow should come shining through? No matter how your heart is grieving, you keep on living the dreams that you wish will come true. Hi. Hey there. I'm so sorry that we weren't able to get with you sooner, but you ended up falling asleep in your chair for a little bit here in our lobby. Yeah, it's okay. It happens all the time, actually. People are obviously coming in to the sleep clinic here to try and understand conditions like their insomnia, other varieties of sleep deprivation, just in general sleep disorders. And people fall asleep in our lobby at times because it's such a calming atmosphere. I mean, of course, we would want it to be as such if we are going to be conducting sleep trials all day long here. It's the middle of the day and you can't really tell, can you? We have very dim lighting in here, but I find that it really sets the tone for people who are struggling to fall asleep. Puts them at ease, gets them nice and calm. Are you here for an appointment today? Excellent. I'm going to be your practitioner. I'm the only one here today, so I'm running the show. Is it your first time in with us? I don't believe that we've met before. Yeah, it's a pleasure. My name is Cherie. I'm going to go ahead and start a patient file for you. Is that alright? Yeah. So whenever people come in for the first time, I'd just like to get an account set up so we can send you all of our data that we record, and you can give us feedback. It just provides that direct link between us and you. I think it's really helpful for matters like this because, as I'm sure you're aware, sleep disorders affect the people that they do almost every single night.
James Henry Trotter.
We're trying to prevent that from
when
happening.
he was about 4 years old.
Anytime you need to reach us, our hotline is open 24/7, and we also have an online
he had
It's also open 24/7. So
living peacefully with his mother and father,
to start
a beautiful house beside the sea.
What is your first name?
There were always plenty of other children for him to play with.
And can you
and
spell that for me?
there
And
was the
some people
sandy
have
beach
different
for him
spelling
to
at
run
times.
out on, and the ocean
Perfect. That's
to
exactly
paddle in.
how I spelled it. I'm glad I
It
got
was
it
the
right.
perfect life for a
And
small boy.
Next is your last name.
Then
Can you just go ahead and spell this
One
one
day,
out for me? Sometimes they can be a little
James's mother
difficult.
and father went to London to do some shopping. And there was a terrible thing that had happened.
And I like to get your middle initial as
Both
well.
of them suddenly got eaten up
Cool. Nice.
in full
And then
daylight.
your date of birth,
Mind you,
starting with the month,
on a
followed by
crowded
the
street.
day, and then the year, please.
By an enormous, angry rhinoceros, which had escaped from the London Zoo.
By the way, you don't look a day over 20, so.
Now,
I'm gonna grab
This,
some more intake
as you can well
questions, but
imagine,
I'm gonna have you go
was
ahead
a
and fill
rather
them out,
nasty
so I'm gonna grab a
experience
form for
for
you and
two
I'll
such
give
gentle
you can go wait
parents.
over there, or you can fill it out at the desk here. It's your choice.
In the long
And
run,
then
it was
once
far
you have that
nastier
back
for
to me,
James
we
than
can
it
go
was
ahead
for
and
them.
get started with
Their
your sleep
troubles
trial. Okay,
were over in a jiffy.
awesome.
They were dead and gone in 35 seconds. Flat. Poor James, on the other hand, was still
Go
very
ahead and
much
fill out
alive,
both
and
sides here. That would be
all at
great.
once he found himself
Just
alone
bring that
and
back to me whenever you're done.
frightened in a vast and unfriendly world. The lovely house by the seaside had to be sold immediately, and the little boy, carrying nothing but a small suitcase containing a pair of pajamas and a toothbrush, was sent away to live with his 2 aunts, or aunts. Their names were Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker, and I am sorry to say that they were both really horrible people. They were selfish and lazy and cruel, and right from the beginning they started beating poor James for almost no reason at all. They never called him by his real name,
Hey there. You
but
are
always referred to him as
cool.
"You disgusting little beast,"
Thank
or
you.
"You filthy
Okay.
nuisance,"
So I'm gonna
Or,
get some stuff
"You
prepared for
miserable
us.
creature."
The room is right down
And
this way to the
They
left.
certainly
It's your
never gave
first
him
left.
any toys to play
Shouldn't
with,
get lost. We
or
really
any
don't have
picture
that big of
books
space
to
here,
look at.
it's quite big enough.
His
for
room
what
was
we
as
need.
bare as a
We
prison
have
cell.
the first door on the left, right down
They lived
there. I'm
Aunt
going
Sponge
to, like I
and
said, gather
Spiker.
some stuff, get
And
your
now James
triggers
as well,
prepared, and
in a queer,
then I will
ramshackle
meet
house
you in there.
on the
Sound good?
top of a high hill
Okay, perfect.
in the south
Thank you so
England.
much for filling this out. It's pretty quick, actually. Some people take a really long time, but you must know yourself quite well.
The hill
Awesome. Well,
was
see
so
you.
high
Okay.
that from almost
you.
anywhere in the garden, James could look down and see for miles and miles across a marvelous landscape of woods and fields, and, on a very clear day, if he looked in the right direction, he could see a tiny gray dot
Thank you
far
so much
away
for
on the
being here.
horizon, which was the house that he used to live in
going over
with
your
his
intake
beloved
form.
mother
That's what took me a
and
little bit
father.
more time. And I
Just
wanted
beyond
to
that,
just
he could see
kind
the ocean itself,
browse over some of the answers.
a long, thin
Make
streak
sure we didn't miss anything before we
blackish
begin
blue,
with the triggers. I
like a
also
line of
did
ink
bring a list of those.
beneath
If you
the
want me to
rim
read
of
them
the
for you, I
sky.
can. Otherwise, we can just have it be a surprise as we go along.
But James was
I will
never
explain
allowed
to you briefly
to
though
go
what
down
I'm going to
off the
do
top
for
of
you
that
today
hill.
during the sleep trial.
Neither
So
Aunt
you won't be
Sponge
left in the
nor
dark or
Aunt
anything.
Spiker
Don't
could
worry.
ever be bothered
Well,
to take him out with
You might
herself,
be left in the dark.
not even
so
for
you
a
can
small
sleep.
walk.
If you end
or
up falling
pick.
asleep during the trial at
He
any time,
certainly wasn't
we
permitted
will
to
leave
go
you
alone.
sleeping. We do want to make
The
sure that
nasty
our
little
research is
beast
very
will
thorough,
only
and
get
if
into
it's
mischief
effective,
if he
we
goes
like
out
to know.
of the
So
garden.
we do allow you to sleep
Aunt
for up to
Spiker
1
had
hour
said,
after your
and
trial,
terrible
and then after
punishments
that,
were
we have to
promised him,
kindly ask
such
you
as
to leave.
being locked up in the cellar
Going
with the rats
back
for a week
First and foremost,
if he ever so much as
your
dared to
intake
climb
form.
over the fence.
I asked you how long you
The
had
garden,
trouble with
which
sleeping, and
covered
you
the
just
whole
wrote
of the top of the hill,
years, which
was
is a good
large
answer. I was wondering
and
if you had any
desolate,
clarification on
and the only
how
tree
many
in the
years per se?
entire place,
More than one, more than
apart
five,
from a clump of
more
dirty
than
old
10.
laurel bushes at the far end,
Got
was
it?
an ancient peach tree that never gave any peaches.
Thank
There
you.
was no swing,
This one I know it can
no
be a little bit
seesaw,
confusing because
no
people do
sand
scales
pit,
different
and
ways.
no
You
other
left
children
it
were
blank,
ever
which
invited
figured
to
that
come
might be
up
why,
the
so I
hill
wanted to explain
and
how
play
this one
with
works
poor
here.
James.
On a scale from 1 to 10,
There wasn't
how
so
hard
much
is
as a
it for you
dog
to fall
or a
asleep
cat
each night?
around to
So
keep him company.
imagine at number 1,
And
you are
as
laying
time
down,
went on,
closing your eyes, and
he became
immediately
sadder
falling asleep.
sadder
And number 10
and
is
more
you lay
and more
awake
lonely.
each and every night,
And he
praying
used to spend
that you'll
hours
be
every
able to
day
get
standing
even
at the
1
bottom
minute
of the
of
garden,
shut-eye.
gazing
Nothing happens for you.
wistfully at the
Where would
lovely
you
but forbidden
rank
world
yourself between 1 and
of
10?
woods and fields
Okay.
and ocean that was
Yeah.
spread out below him like a magic
It's
carpet.
not the best, but hopefully today we
Chapter
can
2.
make some progress in getting you down to
Here
1.
is
You
James
also
Henry
left this one
Trotter.
blank. Maybe
After
you don't have any coping
he had
mechanisms,
been
which is okay.
with his
But
aunts
I
for
asked how you
3 whole
currently deal with your
years,
insomnia. Can you think of absolutely
which is
anything
when
that you
this
use
story
to help you,
really begins.
whether or not it's a positive or negative?
For now,
Influence is not mine to judge.
there came a morning
Just anything at all
when
that helps
something
you.
rather peculiar happened to him,
Okay, we can come
and
back
this
to that
thing
one for sure.
which I say
I'm
was
glad that
only
you
rather
said you were
peculiar,
willing to try some new
soon
techniques.
caused
Obviously, I
a
asked
second
that
thing to
because
happen,
some of the
which
things
was
that we do
very
today may
peculiar.
be a little
And
new
then,
for you. So I just
very
wanted to make sure
peculiar
you
thing,
were open to
in its own
exploring
turn,
this, which sounds
caused a
like you are.
really
So that
fantastically peculiar thing
I
to
asked,
occur.
do you prefer visual
It
or
all
auditory
started
stimuli?
on a
And
blazing
you
hot
answered both.
in the middle of
So
summer.
that is very exciting.
Aunt
And
Sponge
then
and Aunt
I
Spiker
asked, what is the most
James
soothing
were
experience
all out
you
in the
can
garden.
remember having? And
James
you
had been put to
just
work,
wrote time with my
as
mom.
usual.
Could you elaborate on that?
This time, he was chopping wood for the kitchen stove.
Oh,
Aunt
that sounds like a
Sponge and
beautiful
Aunt
moment.
Spiker were
Did you guys do
sitting
that
comfortably
often?
in deck chairs nearby, sipping tall
Cool.
glasses of fizzy lemonade, and watching him
Can
to
get
see
you back
that he
to a
didn't
place
stop
of
work
comfort,
for 1
like the one that you
second.
were in back then. So here is
Aunt Sponge
briefly
was
what is
enormously
going
fat
to happen
and very
next.
short.
I am going
She had small,
to
piggy eyes,
show you
a sunken mouth,
and
and one of
perform
those white,
on
flappy
you
faces that looked
a
exactly
series
as though
of
it had been
different
boiled.
visual and auditory
She was like a great,
stimulus.
white,
And we're
soggy,
basically going to
overboiled
see what your
cabbage.
body responds to
Aunt
and
Spiker,
what you have a
on the
resistance
other
to,
hand,
so we can
was
figure out what
lean
gets you to
and
sleep
tall
not only the
and bony,
fastest, but the
and
longest
she wore
as
steel-rimmed spectacles that
If
fixed
you
on
want
the
me
end
to
of her
read
nose
off
with a
the
clip.
list of triggers that I have for you.
She had a screeching voice and long,
Some, but
wet,
keep others
narrow
secrets.
lips.
Excellent.
And whenever she
So
got
I do
angry
have
or excited,
some
little
for
flecks
you
of
here.
spit
We
would
found that
come
all of our
shooting out of her
clients
mouth as she talked.
greatly soothed with
And
music.
There
So
they sat,
I'm doing a bit of humming
these
for you
two
today. Please
ghastly
pardon my vocal
hags,
cords. They're not
sipping their
used.
drinks and
I try to
every
keep
now
them
and
in
again
good shape with
screaming
my best.
at James to
I'll
chop
be doing a
faster
bit of reading
and
for you
faster.
as well. Some different
They also
folk
talked about
experience
themselves, each one saying how beautiful
and I
she
am
thought she
also going
was.
to track your
Aunt Sponge
eyes and your
had a
ears
long-handled
just to
mirror
make
on
sure
her
that
lap,
everything
and she
is
kept picking
looking
it
as
up,
it should.
gazing
I
at her
am
own
also going to
hideous
check
face.
out your mouth.
I look
I wanted
and
to
smell.
make sure you
Aunt Sponge
weren't
declared,
snoring
as
or having any
lovely
issues with
as
breathing during the night. Sometimes
just
we can tell
feast your
by
eyes
the shape
upon
of
my
people's
face.
palate. So I'm going to
Observe
take a look
my
inside your mouth
shapeliness.
as well.
Behold,
I think
my
that's how I will
heavenly
disclose
silky
for now.
locks.
Did you want to go ahead
if
and
I
get
take
started with the
both
triggers?
my socks, you'll see my dainty
I'm
toes.
going to set this
But don't
aside for
forget,
right now, but I will be
Aunt Spiker
recording
Craft,
after we do
how
each one,
much your
just
tummy
so I
shows.
can keep track of what you enjoy and what you
Aunt
didn't.
Sponge went red.
Because I'm set
Aunt
this down.
Spiker said, "My sweet, you cannot win. Behold,
Alrighty.
my
So, like I
gorgeous curvy
mentioned, I'm
shape,
going to check your
my teeth,
ears and
my
your
charming
eyes,
grin.
and also look inside of your mouth. I'm going to go ahead and perform all of those tests
Oh,
right now, just off the
beauteous
bat.
me,
So when
how
we do
I
all
adore
of the triggers with my
radiant
tools, I can
looks.
make sure you're getting the
And
full
please
experience
ignore
possible. I'm going
pimple
to
on my
go
chin.
ahead and put on
My
some
dear old
gloves
trout,
just
Aunt
for
Sponge cried,
sanitization.
your own
sake.
bones and skin.
These are some nice leather
Such
gloves.
loveliness
They're a little bit
as
big
I
on me,
possess
but they belong
can only
to the
truly
sleep
shine
clinic.
in
So
Hollywood.
they need
Aunt
to fit
Sponge
more than
declared.
just my hands. I'm
Oh,
a bit petite, so
wouldn't
I
that
can't
be
expect
fine?
everything to be perfect.
I'd capture all the nation's
Some
hearts.
nice rubber gloves, and
They'd give me all the leading
match the
parts.
theme of our environment.
The
as you can tell.
stars would all resign.
That's another reason I enjoy
I think you'd make
wearing
Aunt
my
Spiker
flashlight here, and
a lovely Frankenstein.
just gonna make sure your
Poor
eyes are
James.
working alright. So we're
He
gonna
was still
go
slaving
yeah,
away at the
focus on the
chopping
light
block.
for me.
The heat was terrible.
Beautiful.
He was sweating
and
all over.
this side.
His arm was aching.
Excellent.
The chopper
Back around over
was a
here.
large blunt thing,
Okay,
far
just
too
keep
heavy
focusing
for
on
a
the
small
light for
boy
me.
to use. And
On this side.
as he worked, James began thinking about all of the other children in the world and what they might be doing at this moment.
And
Some would be
follow
riding
forward.
tricycles around in their gardens. Some would be walking in cool woods and picking bunches of wildflowers. And all of the little friends whom he used to know would be down by the seaside playing in the wet sand and splashing around in the water. Great tears began oozing out of James's eyes and rolling down his cheeks.
Maybe a little bit brighter.
He stopped working
This one.
and leaned against the chopping
Open
block,
up for me.
overwhelmed by his own unhappiness. "What's the matter with you?" Aunt Spiker screeched, glaring at him over the top of her steel spectacles. James began to cry. "Stop that immediately. Get on with your work, you nasty little beast," Aunt Sponge ordered.
For the visual
"Oh,
and
Auntie Sponge
examination,
James cried
going
out.
to test your
and
hearing
Auntie
now.
Spiker, can't we all,
I don't know
please,
if you can hear this.
just for once, go down to the seaside on the bus? It isn't very
Yeah,
far,
this side.
and I feel so hot and awful and lonely." "Why,
Great.
You lazy,
Beautiful tears.
good-for-nothing brute, Aunt Spiker shouted. Beat him, Aunt Sponge cried. I certainly will, Aunt Spiker snapped. She glared at James, and James looked back at her with large, frightened eyes. I shall beat you later on in the day when I don't feel so hot, she said. And now, get out of my sight, you disgusting little worm.
Well, since
Give me
everything
some
appears to be
peace.
working just fine,
James
I
turned
think we are
and
good
ran.
to
He ran
move
off as fast
along.
as he could
I'm
to
just
the
going
far
to
end
write
of the
a
garden
few quick notes
and hid
on how you
himself
performed thus
behind
far,
that clump
and then we can
dirty
continue,
old
right?
laurel bushes that we mentioned earlier on. Then he covered his face with his hands and began to cry and cry. Do you want me to read one more chapter to you? Sure. Let's do one more. Chapter 3. It was at this point that the first thing of all, the rather peculiar thing that led to so many other much more peculiar things happened to him. For suddenly, just behind him, James heard a rustling of leaves. He turned around, and he saw an old man in a crazy dark green suit emerging from the bushes.
Next, I am going to
He was a very
test
small
a little bit of
man,
humming on you.
but he had a
mentioned
huge
earlier
bald head
that a lot of our
and a
clients
face that
are
was
greatly
covered all
soothed
over
by
the
music
bristly
and
black
melodies.
whiskers.
So, pardon my
He
voice.
stopped
Like I said,
when he was
but
about 3 yards
I'm
away.
going to see if
He stood there,
singing,
leaning
music,
on his stick,
angst in general,
and staring
and a lot
hard
of
at
times is something that would
When
be
he
of benefit
spoke,
to you when you are
his
trying to fall
voice was
asleep.
very
And
slow.
if that is the case, we have a lot of
creaky.
things that we can prescribe you.
Come closer to me,
yeah.
little boy,
I'm going to just
He
sing
said,
you a 30-second
beckoning to
little
James with a
melody
finger.
here. I would love it for this
Come right
exercise if you
close to
could
me,
close your eyes.
I will show you
And
something.
just really focus on
wonderful.
the auditory stimuli.
James was too
I
frightened to
will
move.
have you open them after we're done.
The old
So
man
really try and keep
hobbled
them
a step or
closed
two nearer,
and just
and then
focus on the
he put a
auditory
hand
aspect
into
of
the
this
pocket of his
experience.
jacket
Cool.
and took out a
Nice.
small white paper bag.
Here it goes.
You see this? He whispered, waving the bag gently to and fro in front of James's face. You know what this is, my dear. You know what's inside this little bag. When he came nearer still, leaning forward and pushing his face so close to James that James could feel breath blowing on his cheeks. The breath smelled musty and stale and slightly melted, like air in an old cellar. Take a look,
Alright, could
my
you
dear,
briefly
he said,
describe to me,
opening
and
the
you're
bag
welcome to open your
and
eyes.
tilting it
Could you
towards
briefly
James.
describe to me
Inside,
any sensations
James
that you
could see
felt in your body during
massive,
those tones?
tiny green things that looked
Anything
like
else that you
little stones
experienced?
or crystals, each
Lovely.
one about the size of a grain of rice. They were
Some
extraordinarily
vibrations.
beautiful,
Beautiful.
but there was a strange brightness about them,
And
a sort
did you feel
of
any
luminous
tingling,
quality
perhaps?
that made them glow and sparkle
Excellent.
in the most wonderful way.
Wonderful.
Listen to them, the old man whispered. Listen to them move.
Alright, we're gonna move on.
James stared into the bag, and
Sure
sure
we're going to try
there was a faint
another
rustling sound coming from
auditory
inside it.
stimuli.
And
So I'm
then
gonna have you go
he
ahead and
noticed
close your
that
eyes.
all of the tiny little
Thank
green
you very
things
much.
were
I'm going
slowly,
to
very, very slowly, stirring
this
about
towel
and moving
place
over each
this
other
over top of
as
you.
though they were alive.
And I'm going
There's
to
more
squinch
power and magic in those
sides.
things in there than in
And
all
you can let
the
me
rest of the
feel
world put
after
together. The
you're
old man said
It's about
softly,
30 seconds, just like
But-
with all the other ones.
but
Right? So just
what
relax.
are they? James murmured, finding his voice at last. Where did they come from? Aha, the old man whispered. You'd never guess that. He was crouching a little now and pushing his face still closer and closer to James until the tip of his long nose was actually touching the skin on James's forehead. Then, suddenly, he jumped back and began waving his stick madly in the air. Crocodile tongues, he cried. 1,000 long, slimy crocodile tongues boiled up in the skull of a dead witch for 20 days and nights, with the eyeballs of a lizard. Add the fingers of a young monkey, the gizzard of a pig, and the beak of a green parrot, the juice of a porcupine, and 3 spoonfuls of sugar. Stir for another week, and then let the moon do the rest. All at once, he pushed the white paper bag
Excellent
into
work.
James' hands and said, Here,
Can you describe to me anything
take it.
you experienced?
it's
during
yours.
that? Very nice.
I'll read you one more
Sounds
chapter
like
and
that
then
one
we
was
will
pretty
end, okay?
effective for you then.
Henry James Trotter
Good.
stood there, clutching the bag and staring at the old man.
Excellent.
And now, the old man said,
One more auditory
all
trigger
you've
for
got
you.
to do
Please
is
go
this.
ahead and keep your eyes open for this one. I have some tuning forks that I'm going to use on you.
Take a large jug of water
They
and
are
pour
all
all
of
of the
the
little
notes
green things into it.
on
Then,
the scale,
very
but they
slowly,
are in different
one by one,
octaves.
add
This is the
10
highest one,
hairs from your own head.
512.
That sets them off. It gets them going. In a couple of minutes, the water will begin to froth and bubble furiously. And as soon as that happens,
One more
you must
time.
quickly drink it all down, the whole jugful, in one gulp. And then, my dear, you will feel it churning and boiling in your stomach, and steam will start coming out of your mouth. And immediately after that,
Can you
marvelous
tell me
things will start
anything
happening to you.
that
Fabulous,
tone made you feel?
unbelievable things. And you will never be miserable again in your life. Because you are miserable,
Yeah,
aren't
that one
you?
was the 512.
You needn't tell me. I know all about it.
See? That was the note.
Now, off you go. And do exactly as I say.
Next one.
And don't whisper a word of this to those 2 horrible aunts of yours.
A bit lower.
Not a word. And don't let those green things in there get away from you either. Because if they do escape, then they will be working their magic upon somebody else instead of you. And that isn't what you want at all, is it,
Play it
my
for you
dear?
one more time.
Whoever they first meet, be it bug, insect, animal, or tree, that will be the one who gets the full power of their magic. So hold the bag tight. Don't tear the paper. Off you go.
And
Hurry
can
up.
you tell me anything
Don't wait. Now's the
that the
time.
lower tone
Hurry.
made you feel?
With that,
Maybe
the old
in
man
regards
turned away
to the high
and
one
disappeared
versus the low one,
into
just
the bush.
individually. And that was
Why did you pick this
256.
story so far?
Okay. One more for you.
Yeah,
We're
look like
almost
you're
finished,
starting
don't
to start
worry.
falling asleep.
This one is going to be
I think maybe a few more lullabies would do the trick. Yes.
It's a little bit lower.
Just close your eyes and
Play this one for you 3 times because I can get kind of hard to hear.
take a nice deep breath in. And exhale. One more in. And exhale.
And can you tell me anything about the experience of the lowest one? Really?
It's really raining.
That one was 128 hertz.
It's very soothing though.
Which one did you like the best? The high, middle, or the low? Nice. Here, called Your Brain at Work. Out the center point. It's very beautiful. And I'm just going to read this to you, but I'm going to read it at a bit of a whisper. Okay. Our clients have found that listening to whispered audiobooks can really help them fall asleep. So we like to simulate the experience by reading to them in a whispered tone. Okay. I'm just going to turn to a random page on here. And we will start. Don't have much money. Juggling 5 things at once. It's 11 a.m. Emily is walking to a meeting with her senior executives. It's her first meeting with this group, so she gives directions to the meeting room from the assistant at the elevator. On the way down a long hall, her cell phone rings. It's one of the unsuccessful applicants at the job that Emily is hiring for today. While trying to let him down nicely, Emily realizes that she's lost. She doesn't have a mental map for how the rooms are laid out. She finishes the call, finds her bearings, and gets to the meeting 5 minutes late, annoyed with herself. Emily is intelligent, yet she can't follow directions to a room and talk on the phone at the same time. This inability might seem strange based on the ideas about the stage so far, as there are only 2 items in her attention: find the room and talk on the phone. Why are only 2 items overwhelming her prefrontal cortex? As the meeting participants settle in, Emily notices a colleague checking his BlackBerry when her own buzzes. She isn't used to being always on. The device came with her promotion. She would turn it off, but she's worried about missing something urgent. The email is from Joanne, the woman who Emily wants to hire as her assistant. Their meeting needs to be rescheduled. Emily responds straight away, keeping a partial eye on the meeting. As she types the message, she feels almost a little sick, a bit like how she feels when she tries to read as a passenger in the car. Her brain is doing something Good. For the reading portion of our test, did you feel like that was relaxing for you? Excellent. I'll go ahead and take note of that. Alright, so the last thing that I wanted to do was a countdown from 10 to 0. And by 0, I want you to try to feel very relaxed, but also ready to, fall asleep, hopefully. So here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I knew that would put them right to sleep. Good night, little one. We'll see you in an hour. Good morning. It looks like you ended up falling asleep. It's totally fine. If you could just head out the same door you came in, and we'll see you in about a week for our follow-up